What is on today?
Today we are going to talk about the unjustified execution of somebody called Marcellus Williams. But before you get to know who Marcellus Williams was and how he came to be convicted and later allegedly unjustly executed, first you need to know this person that I'm going to mention, so that to bring you back into understanding who Marcellus Williams was.
All right.
Now,
continue.
We have this person known as Felicia Ann Gale. Yes! She was born on February 5th, 1956 in a place called Rockford, Illinois, where she was also raised. So she graduated from the University of Illinois with a degree in journalism before working as a reporter for the newspaper called St. Louis Post-Dispatch, where she stayed until 1992. She therefore after left the newspaper to pursue more philanthropy and volunteer work, which included mentoring and tutoring disadvantaged children. So in 1979, she was married to somebody called Daniel Pickers, who led the interventional radiology department at the Barnes Jewish Hospital in St. Louis.
Continue.
Now, on August 11th, 1998, Gale, who was 42 years old, and she was a reporter for the St. Louis Post-Dispatch by then. She was found lifeless in her home, having been stabbed around 43 times with a butcher knife, which was taken from her kitchen. It was during that evening when Gale's body was discovered by her husband at her home.
That was really sad. Was there any emergency response after that?
Technically, yes. The police arrived at the scene at around 8 p.m. in the evening. And that's when officers found Gale in a fetal position with her left side covered in blood. She had been stabbed up to 43 times. Even a large butcher's knife was found lodged in her neck. She also had stab wounds in her back, in her thigh, 2 more in the neck. Also, defensive wounds were also visible in her hands, arms, and a large gash in her right elbow. Now, something more to that, her purse, jacket, and her husband's Macintosh computer laptop was stolen amidst a burglary spree that was taking place around the neighborhood.
So did the investigations kick off?
Yes, technically the investigation had kicked off. Now, the year is May 1999, and Gale's family announces a $10,000 reward for any information leading to an arrest and conviction in the case. So after hearing about the cash prize, different people start popping up with the testimonies so that they can win the cash. And these people included Williams' former cellmate, Williams' girlfriend, and there is this man who testified that Williams sold him Gale's stolen laptop. Other evidences included Williams' possession of items stolen from Gale's home and others. So, to be specific, these people who popped up with various testimonies were 2 individuals. One individual was called Henry Cole, and the other was called Laura Asaro. And they all named Marcellus Scott Williams as the culprit. So Cole received a reward of $5,000 for his testimonies, while Asaro did not request any reward for coming forward. So, however, Williams had an extensive criminal record, and Cole volunteered that Williams had at one time made a jailhouse confession to him while they were both in jail on charges which are unrelated to the murder. So for this case, Cole had already been released before volunteering this information. And remember, Williams had started serving a 20-year sentence for robbing a donut shop. So also Laura Asaro, the girlfriend of Williams, at the time of the crime, gave a testimony that William had confessed to her and detailed on what happened. So Asaro testified that she found a purse with Gale's identification in Williams' car. She also testified that she saw scratches on Williams' neck, blood on his shirt, and a laptop in his car. This was against Cole's testimony, which was compatible to the news reports. She is said to have provided details that had not been mentioned before. However, her testimonies were challenged by a group called the Innocence Project, and that testimony is being contested up to now.
Yeah. But were there any more steps taken after the testimonies?
Yeah, and during that time, something more challenging crops up. The prosecution described physical evidence in the crime scene itself as inconclusive, as the shoe prints, fingerprints, and hair found at the crime scene did not match that of Marcellus Williams. A knife that was found at the scene had traces of DNA, but due to the murderer wearing gloves, it only matched those of prosecution team members who handled it after it had been forensically tested and found to have no fingerprints on it. So when they decided to search Williams' car, they found a ruler from Gale's workplace, St. Louis Post-Dispatch, and a calculator that belonged to Gale. Also, a laptop stolen from Gale was also recovered from a man who testified that Williams had sold him the victim's laptop. Williams was therefore convicted of first-degree murder in 2001 and received a death sentence. And this is when the battle of appeal begins.
Yeah.
But before, Williams is held on death row at Potosi Correctional Center after his trial. So the appeal begins. And on appeal, Williams raises several issues, including claims of errors in evidentiary rulings, jury instructions, and victim impact testimony. He also challenged the use of his prior criminal history and alleged improper prosecutorial comments during closing arguments.
Yes.
It was also claimed that the death sentence was controversial, as DNA evidence had been claimed to prove his innocence. Yes! So Williams' family also repeatedly stated that they did not want Williams executed, but the court rejected all these arguments, finding no abuse of discretion by the trial court.
So what happens next in this case?
Nevertheless, Williams Marcellus still maintained his innocence in the Giles case until he accepted an Alford plea. I will explain to you later what an Alford plea means later in the story.
Right.
So under an Alford plea, he had to plead guilty in August 2024. So as I take you back, his case was appealed unsuccessfully several times. And remember, he was first scheduled to be executed by lethal injection in 2015. However, in appeals, his defense produced evidence that DNA taken from the knife at the scene revealed an unknown male profile, which later it was discovered that it belonged to a male prosecutor who had handled the knife, but did not match that of Williams. Yeah. Nevertheless, Williams' execution was instead only postponed and was rescheduled again, and the execution was again to happen on August 22nd, 2017. Now, in 2017, as they were heading towards that date of execution,
yes,
questions and pressure continued to be raised, and the state Supreme Court refused to hear the new DNA evidence nor stop the execution. So the prosecutor said that they were confident about the case despite the DNA, arguing that the DNA alone or that evidence had never formed any part of the basis of the conviction. So Governor Eric Greitens at that time issued a last-minute stop of execution that very day that that Williams was supposed to be executed, remember?
Yes.
So after, the governor initiated a board of inquiry to examine the new DNA evidence and other aspects of the case. So the board was headed by somebody called Carol E. Jackson, former federal judge of the Eastern District of Missouri, I think so. So this board consisted of retired federal judges to review the case. It was a group of both prosecution and defense team. So the board was also to meet with the state of defense attorneys in June 2018 But unfortunately, Greatens resigned as governor. That was in June 2018. So the DNA evidence and new analysis again did not match that of Williams. Still, it was revealed to belong to the prosecutor who mishandled the knife after it was seized as evidence. So the board held hearings in August 2018. So new governor who came in, Mike Parson, was to receive a board's conclusion and make his final decision.
Of course. So here I see the case growing more tough, isn't
it? Technically, yes. Because in August 2023, there's a group called the Midwest Innocence Project. It came in to defend Marcellus Williams, claiming that Marcellus Williams could be innocent. And they filed a lawsuit stating that the St. Louis County prosecuting attorney is on a record of dismissing DNA evidence that points an accused person's innocence. So on January 26, 2024, St. Louis prosecuting attorney, his name is Wesley Bell, filed a motion in the St. Louis County Circuit Court asking the court to vacate Marcellus Williams' death sentence. Because a 2021 Missouri law allows prosecutors to intervene where there is information suggesting a convicted person may be innocent. So he cited potential ineffective assistance of counsel, apparent bias in jury selection, and potential weakness of police investigation. He asked the court for a hearing to consider the new evidence and other aspects of the investigation and trial. So the new evidence consisted of a special prosecution review of the case, which included finding of 3 independent DNA experts who unanimously again concluded that the DNA of the murder weapon was not for William Marcellus. Rather, it belonged to investigator and assistant prosecuting attorney who had handled the murder weapon without wearing gloves. That is after it had been forensically tested. So a hearing was scheduled for August 21st, 2024 to determine again Williams' innocence. But however, as DNA evidence had never formed any part of the basis for Williams' conviction, the motion to stop the execution again was not granted.
So this technically means that William Marcellus was headed for execution this time.
Yeah, but the fight to redeem himself was still on. Because on June 4th, 2024, I remember, Williams' execution is again rescheduled again, and he was to be executed on 24th September 2024.
Continue.
But on July 2nd, the Circuit Court of the St. Louis County, Missouri, scheduled a hearing for August 21st, 2024 to evaluate the supposed evidence of Williams' innocence. So on July 12, 2024, the Missouri Supreme Court ruled that his execution would move forward despite the pending lawsuit to overturn his conviction. So in court's opinion overruling the motion, someone called Justice Zell Fisher, I think Zell Fisher, ruled that they do not have the procedural authority to withdraw the execution order at this time. And therefore, here comes an Alford plea. I told you I will tell you what an Alford plea is. So an Alford plea is also known as Kennedy plea. It is some kind of bargaining whereby a defendant in a criminal case does not admit to the criminal act and asserts innocence but accepts imposition of a sentence. So on August 21st, 2024, Williams accepted a plea bargain. It was offered to him by the prosecution team to commute or convert his death sentence to life in prison without any possibility of parole. So the prosecutors argued in favor of Williams during the hearing, pointing out that the DNA on the murder weapon was not his and that they had duly considered this fact before offering him an Alford plea to vacate or stop his death sentence. However, the state attorney general, his name is Andrew Bailey, opposed this decision and wanted the execution to move forward as scheduled. So the Missouri Supreme Court blocked the plea, They blocked the deal, blocked the agreement on the same day, and William's execution date remained to be September 24th, 2024. So, however, a hearing again was scheduled to consider William's claim of innocence.
So was that it?
Not really. He was still fighting on.
Continue.
Marcellus Williams came up with the final appeal. On September 12th, 2024, I remember, St. Louis County Circuit Judge, his name is Bruce Hilton, rejected Williams' appeal again, stating that his counsel was rehearsing their arguments from previous appeals, all of which had been rejected multiple times by the state and federal courts, and ordered that the execution should move forward as scheduled. So on September 24th, 2024, Governor Mike Parson denied Marcellus Williams clemency, and the case was reviewed by the United States Supreme Court just hours before scheduled execution. So the Supreme Court also denied the request to hold the execution again, although Justices Sonia Sotomayor, Elena Kagan, and another one called Kentucky Brown Jackson stated that if it was them, they would have just granted that request to stop the execution. So it was, however, concluded that there were sufficient statutory aggravating circumstances, such as the brutality of the crime and Williams' prior convictions, that made the court to affirm both conviction and the death sentences.
But I still really insist, was that really it? Was that all?
Not really. Remember, despite pleas and protests from the public and around the world, on September 24th, 2024, 55-year-old Marcellus Williams was executed by lethal injection at 6 p.m. CT at a place called Eastern Reception Diagnostic and Correctional Center in Monterey, Missouri. For his last meal, Williams was served chicken wings and tater tots. In a statement, Mike Parson, the governor, justified Williams' execution, saying that it was irreversible because of many things that he did, like his prior criminal record and his alleged behavior in prison, which included attacking other inmates and threatening correctional officers. Nevertheless, William Marcellus' last statement, which was written down and witnessed on September 24th, 2024, was that all praise be to Allah in every situation. Williams had converted into Islam in prison, taking up the name Khalifa and becoming an imam, leading prayer in his cell block. He was described as a kind and thoughtful man by his attorney. Williams also dedicated his time in prison to poetry, and that was the end of William Marcellus. And kindly subscribe to our YouTube channel for more exclusive information beyond this. And we thank you very much for pressing that button. God bless you. Bye-bye.
This man